Welcome to the Just Trust the Process podcast, where faith, fortitude, and fierce determination collide to change the world. I'm bringing you the conversations that help you to trust God through the process, learn how to enjoy the process, and relax in the confidence that you will make it to your promised land. I'm your girl, Alisha J, and I'm here to help you pursue your purpose with passion and perseverance without losing your panache. Today we have Lola Fadipe. Lola is a daughter and ambassador of the Most High God, continuously pursuing a deeper intimacy with Him. As a child of God, she embraces her role as a wife, mother of two, speaker, mentor, author, and serial entrepreneur. Through her book, How I Saw God Through the Eyes of My Children, she shares the profound ways her faith has shaped her journey as a mother. Her purpose is to help people in any way possible, sharing valuable lessons learned from her own personal experiences. Professionally, she has held the role of director of a project management team and also serves on the board of the African Immigrant Collective Organization. Through her work, she seeks to inspire and uplift others in their faith and life journey. But before we welcome Lola in, of course, we got to shout out to our sponsors. Unmarried Without Children. Have y'all gotten y'all books, ladies? So ladies, have y'all ever felt overlooked or misunderstood because you're not married or don't have children? Unmarried Without Children is the book you need. In this powerful guide, I dive into the unique journey of women like us who are living out God's purpose in our own way and in our own time. Whether you're focusing on your career, your calling, or navigating the path to motherhood, Unmarried Without Children will inspire you to walk confidently in your God-given identity. Grab your copy today and let's drive together right where God has you on your journey to all He has for you, including the possibility of motherhood. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and of course, allthingsAlishaJ.com. Yeah! So let's welcome Lola Fadipe in this morning to the Just Trust the Process podcast. Thank you, Lola, for joining us. I'm so excited to have you here. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic, Alisha. Thank you.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So,
here. Go ahead.
Yes, and I'm honored to have you here. So tell us a little bit more about you, Lola. Like, how are things, like, well, who is Lola? What is Lola doing? What's going on?
I think you've kind of said most of what who Lola is, at least from a bio perspective. In terms of what Lola is doing, I'm in between jobs at the moment, and I've definitely been reinventing myself during this period. I've been involved, like you said, I am a serial entrepreneur. So right now I am involved in a couple real estate projects. I have my real estate business that I do as well locally. I am in the process of writing my second book. Had to breathe. I'm also taking a master class during this period and just, learning to spend more time with my family and my loved ones. So it's definitely been a really good introspective period for me.
I love that you said that, like, because, we both grew up, right, in households where we're told to go to college, we're told to get a job, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? And we work these jobs and, we climb the corporate ladder, we start making more money, but there's something that's missing, right? Sometimes we don't feel fulfilled in certain areas of our lives. So how did you balance climbing the corporate ladder? Now you're unemployed, but how did you balance being in corporate America, being a mom, having a real estate business, writing a book? Because you wrote your book, How I Saw God Through the Eyes of My Children, while you were full time, right? In full time being a manager, a director, fast paced business. And for those who don't know, Lola used to be my manager. So this is why I know a lot of things about Lola. I love her so much. So, but tell us about that process of trusting God through that process, because you moved during that process as well. So it was a lot of things that went on during that period of time. So how did you navigate those waters? And was it easy to trust God, or were there times that you doubted God?
Oh, lots of good questions. Where do I start? So, one of the things that one of my former bosses had said to me was that I know how to multitask very well. I don't think it's something that I necessarily took notice of. I just kind of did things, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. But one thing that's always been important to me is finding balance through it all. So you would find me going fast paced during certain periods, and then also taking time to retreat and rest during other periods. So that's one way I've been able to navigate through. Also, just knowing that I didn't want to always be in the 9 to 5 race. So I am an entrepreneur at heart. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but even with entrepreneurship, you need funding, etc., insurance, and all of that good stuff. So that's part of what my 9 to 5 provided me. I was also blessed with an awesome team. Like Alicia said, she was part of my team at the time. That actually helped me in the company for longer than I planned to, just because I loved you guys so much, and I still do.
Yes.
And I wish I realized that I could still maintain the relationships outside of work. Maybe I would have perhaps left
Yeah.
at some places. Anyways, but yes. What other question did you ask me? I hope I covered them
So
right.
how did you like not lose your sanity, and then what was your conversations with God during that process? Because we would be on laptops past midnight sometimes, and you still have two young kids, you have a husband. At one point you were packing up and moving a whole house, and it was just like a lot of moving pieces. So how did you just not like be like, Lord, you know what's up? Or maybe you were like, Lord, what's up?
My come to Jesus moments. But those were mostly private moments with God, right? Just
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. Were there times where I didn't trust? Absolutely. But I just knowing that God is always there, He's ever present,
Hmm.
and He never leaves us. I think that having that as a foundation, I think, kept me grounded because I could always go back. I think that's the only reason. That's the only way I could make it. Honestly, it's just because I had God. One thing I always say to people is I don't know how people make it through without God. Like I honestly,
Yeah,
and that's my own personal truth. I'm
that's
sure there are people that make it through life, and I'm sure they're rocking it, but without God, I know my journey would not be the way it is today, and I wouldn't have been able to accomplish all the things I've accomplished so far. So, yes, there were times where I doubted, but just always being able to go back, and just spend that quiet time, listen to His voice in terms of direction and whatnot, definitely helped me along the way.
good, good. Listen, so I know that God gives creatives direction all the time, right? We're getting drops of good ideas like 10 times a day. So when God dropped how I saw God through the eyes of my children in your spirit, what was your first reaction?
So, my relationship with God is somewhat different from others. Some people hear God really clearly. They're like, God told me to do X, Y, Z. Um, that hasn't always been my
Uh-huh.
process, so to speak, in terms of my relationship with God. Um, for me, writing the book it didn't drop in my spirit as, oh, this is the title of the book you need to write, this is all of that good stuff. No, for me, I just felt that heavy pressing on my heart, just to pour out the things that were happening with my kids and the things that I was noticing with my kids. And I had written so much that it
Mm.
became evident that it was meant to become a book. Like, I didn't start off wanting to write a book. I was really just writing the things that were impressed on my heart, so to speak. And that's why I think the journey took so long, because I feel like if I knew, I'm not sure what my reaction would have been if God told me right that I probably would have doubted, because I never saw myself as an author. So I think the way took me through the journey was perfect for me. Just knowing who I am and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
It was definitely not a, oh, this is the book, this is the title. It was all figuring everything out along the way, for me. That was my journey, was just figuring out along the way and figuring out what God's plans were, until it became a book.
Okay.
um,
And what did that look like? Were you collecting like just moments and writing them down? Like how did you write them down and then remember to put them in the book? Like how did that look?
so and I'm just gonna be vulnerable during this time. It was actually a really dark time in my life. So I
Mm.
suffered from postpartum depression.
Oh,
And that for me was writing the book was an outlet. It was a way for me to reflect. It was a way for me to feel gratitude, during that period, and it was a way to,
good.
bring light in what was a dark period in my life. And so, like I said, I wrote the book on my phone. You know,
Wow.
yeah.
Listen, that's amazing.
And that's why I said it didn't start off being a book. Like that's not why I started writing. It was just I was going through, and that was like my outlet, so to speak. But I'd written so much. After a while, I'd written so like I would just write. Like some days I would write, a couple chapters. I didn't know there were chapters at the time, but what ended up being a couple chapters. And I mean, I'd take a break for a while and then write again. So it wasn't like I didn't have a timeline, a set timeline again, because I didn't start off writing a book. Again, it was for me, it was just a way to unburden, um, a challenging time in my life,
I
if that
love
makes sense.
that. Yeah, that makes sense. And so, how long was the period? Because you said it was a period of time. So, how long or how many years did it take? So, you writing, collecting the stories, how long did that take? And then, how long did it take to like publish and all those that good thing?
I don't know who else is taking so long. And it's funny you asked me that question because even, knowing that it took so long almost felt like a negative thing. And I think I even mentioned it when I launched my book, was I almost felt like a failure because once I realized it was a book, I was like, why did it take so long? And then figuring out how to publish the book on my own. I would say it took at least 5 years. I have lost track of how much time it took, but at
Okay.
the very minimum, it took 5 years, probably about 3 years in terms of the writing portion of it. And then once I decided to make it into a book, probably about 2 years. And part of that was me, having battles with myself, uh,
Mm-hmm.
battles of overcoming self doubt, um,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't feel like I was an author. It's almost like an imposter syndrome, like who made you an author, so to speak.
Right.
Those
Right.
thoughts that, kind of tend to pull you down. And then also part of it was not knowing what to do because again, it was a completely new field for me. Hadn't written a book, didn't know anything about writing a book. Trying to get the cover designed, all of that good stuff. And then I had to fund all of it by myself. So there was also, trying to pace
Yeah.
myself through that process. So
Absolutely. So writing the book ended up being therapeutic and healing for you, right? So can you take us through that process of you literally finding God through this process of going through postpartum depression? Because that's a big thing. A lot of women go through postpartum depression and don't really know how to navigate through that. So did you also, in addition to writing the book, did you also go to therapy? If you want to share all of that. Um,
sure. I wasn't sure what to expect with this session today, but it's beautiful. And it's interesting because I feel like God has put like some nuggets even during this week. Like I spoke to my my sister who lives in England earlier this week, and as I was talking to her, I just burst out into tears, and I was like, I'm not sure what's going on. I didn't know I needed, someone to check in, and she didn't just. It wasn't just her checking in. It was almost like she could see me,
yeah.
and see like the struggles. And one of the things she said to me is like, I know that you put in everything into everything that you're going through. So I understand how challenging this is for you. I know that whenever you have a problem, you will try to figure it out. You will do everything possible. You will try everything possible to
Yeah.
figure it out. And that's me.
Yeah.
One of those people that, some of my friends think I'm crazy because I will try just about anything. Like I will try I will try it at
I
least
get it.
once. I mean,
Yes.
if it doesn't work out, fine, it doesn't work out, but I would at least give it a shot. Um,
Right.
So it took me a while before I actually realized I was going through postpartum depression. Like I
Mm.
just realized that I was just different. I didn't find joy in the things I would normally find joy
Mhm.
in. Um, my moods will change from being okay to not being okay to just wanting to be by myself. And then I started research, right? So, because
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, what is going on with me? And does anybody else go through this? And that's when I found out it was postpartum.
And this was with your second child or first child?
My first.
Wow. Okay.
So I had it with both because I got
Okay.
better, and then I
Okay.
had.
Right.
With my second child, I think I had better tools,
Okay.
and it didn't last as long,
Good.
thankfully. But yeah, so I sought medical help, in terms of getting some help there. I got medication. I know a lot of people, and I'm sharing that because I know people struggle with that. I struggled with getting on medication because I'm like, I don't want to, be hooked on drugs and all of this stuff. And I'm happy to say today I'm not on any medication that's related to depression.
Praise
And
God.
I give glory to God for that. And I don't say that to damn anyone that's on
Right.
medication. Because that
Absolutely.
means you're just still on your journey. I was on medication for a while. And it's funny because initially, even when it was prescribed for me, I didn't take it. And that's because of that stigma
Yeah.
of you're taking drugs. And what made it easy for me, and I have to share this, is the doctor that I saw, and just God bless my doctor. He's actually a guy. He shared with me that he himself had to take medication because it was due to like a chemical imbalance.
Oh,
So that made
wow.
me understand that it wasn't just a me problem,
Hmm.
and like
Yeah.
if a doctor that's functioning and is could do that, then it means that it's okay. It's
Yes.
okay. So I want to
Yeah.
share that for anybody else who's struggling and maybe they're just at the beginning of theirs and don't know what to do. You can seek medical help, and maybe they don't put you on medication. Yours might be just they put you on what's it called, vitamin D, or vitamin supplements, so to speak. Whatever it is for your journey, I just want you to be able to feel okay in knowing that you can get the right help. So yes, I did therapy. Um, at the time, I did a lot of introspection. I spent a lot of time in God's presence, just
Mm.
trying to understand a lot of. I read a lot of Joyce Meyer books, and I bring that up because I feel like that helped me a lot, through my journey. And that's when I started quote unquote journaling,
I love
which
that.
now turned out into a book. So yes, I did a lot of different things. I did a bunch of different therapies, not even just therapy in terms of talking to a psychologist. I don't know which is which, so forgive me there, boy, therapist, from that
Hmm.
perspective. But I also did a lot of just personal therapy in terms of going to spas and just making sure that I was taking care of myself, or at least improving my self care
I
with
love
that.
that. Yes, and I think psychologists are can't prescribe, and psychiatrists can prescribe medicine.
Well, none of those prescribed because I was already on medication by the time I started talking to them. But I think for me, it was just unburdening myself of things that had happened over time that perhaps were making me stay in a depressive state and trying to understand,
What
this
it
whole
was.
journey of being a mom and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So talk about that because, a lot of my listeners are mothers or are going to be new mothers. And so, I think for me, I have this idea. I'm going to give birth to this little human and, it's not going to be perfect. I know I'm going to get pooped on and I know they're going to cry because their foot itches and I don't understand that their foot itches. And I'm going to stuck a bottle in their mouth and that's not the problem. Or, so what is that thought process of I'm now a new mom. I am responsible for a human life. And what was the thought process of wow, I'm depressed. I don't know. Like what was that process? Like what were you thinking?
I it was there was a lot of overwhelm. I would
Mhm.
say that it took me a while to come into knowing that I was a mom, and I say that because for the longest I would just be like, I'm a mom. Wow, it's almost like my head knew it, but a part of my body wasn't hadn't connected the dots that I was a mom. And when I say it took a while, I don't mean like it took a few months or a few weeks. I mean like years. Um,
Wow.
a part of me knowing I'm a mom, and mind you, I'm functioning as a mom.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, you're taking care of your kid. Her kids were safe, y'all. Her kids were fine. I've seen her children. They are well taken care of. Okay, let me tell you. One of them is real bougie, so I'm telling you, they're good.
Well, honestly, though, it took, for whatever reason, and I don't know if other people go through that. And I share all these things just so that if there are other people that feel like,
Yes,
because a part of me felt like I was weird. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, a part of me knows I'm a mom. The other part is like, it's still normal old Lola. So it took
right.
a while for me to connect the dots, but there was a lot of overwhelm during that period, and I'm grateful because during that period, God blessed me with support, and that's one thing
Yeah,
that's very
that's
important.
important.
Um, a very supportive husband. At the time, I had my mother-in-law also in the house with me, so she was also able to help. And at the time, I also had my mom as well. So my mom, my mother-in-law. Um, that was an interesting time. I wouldn't recommend having both at the same time because that came with its own challenges.
I'm
But I would
sure.
say, yeah, I would say that support was definitely a big factor. Just having the right support. There was a lot of overwhelm, but having the right support, I think, helped me be able to take a step back sometimes and reflect and be able to come back and be the best version of the mom that I could be during that period.
I love that. I love that you had that support. It's so important to have support in anything that you're going through. When people go through things alone, I'm like, I feel so bad for them because, support will help you get to a place where you can have that peace, where you can take a breath, where you can be like, okay, God's got me. I'm going to be okay. Um,
Absolutely. And one thing I wanted to chip in before we move on to your next question is support doesn't always or only have to come from family.
right.
Like you said, I
Absolutely.
have a soft spot when people don't have support. And I think some people don't realize sometimes that they can seek out support.
Hmm.
You can seek out
Hmm.
support from your church, you can seek out support from your close friends. Sometimes we're scared to share what we're going through, and that keeps us in a dark place. And I'm not saying broadcast everything that you're going through, but there should be at least a few people in your life that you can reach out to when you're in having a hard time, and ask. Sometimes you need to ask for support. Like when it came to my husband, because he didn't understand what was going on, I didn't understand what was going on, so
Yeah.
I had to ask for the support that I needed in that moment, right? And that's my husband. That he's still a very supportive husband, but there were certain times I would have to ask
Blessing.
what I
Yeah,
needed in that moment. So just wanted to put that out there.
I love that. And that's a blessing that you have a husband that's supportive because that's important too,
Yes.
for sure. So before we go any further, we have to take a little break because this episode is brought to you by All Things Alicia J, your one stop destination for inspiration, empowerment, and all things fabulous. Whether you're Whether you're looking for motivational content to uplift your spirit, makeup tips and tricks, or resources to help you navigate life's challenges with confidence, All Things Alicia J has you covered. Visit allthingsaliciaj.com today and join the community of women walking in their God given purpose one fabulous step at a time. All right, so we're talking about, your family, we're talking about your community, we're talking about how you went through postpartum depression, which I'm so glad we talked about because I think that's something that, you know, um, continuously needs to be talked about in the Black community um, a lot because we're just still getting on that bandwagon of being in therapy and figuring out how to have community in a different way because we've always had community, right? We've always had the lady that we can go to down the street and borrow a bag of sugar or, run into their house if somebody's chasing us and we know we're going to be all right. Mama would drop you off at their house because she got to go do something. We've always had that. But this is just a continuation and a building upon that community in a different way of saying, okay, I'm not okay. And I think, we didn't really see that growing up where women in our household would be like, okay, I'm not okay and I need you to take the kids, or I'm not okay and I need like a week to myself. And so I feel like our generation, more so is like, okay, pause. And I'm not going to stop, I want to make sure that my kids are okay. But if I'm not okay, my kids can't be okay, right? My husband can't be okay. My job can't be okay. Um, how how did you navigate that? Because there was a season where you stopped and you paused, for something, and I'll let you explain the story. But how did that look for you, taking that pause, and what led you up to that, and was it scary?
Yes, I will start with the last part. It was definitely scary. There was fear. There was also not even just fear of how I was going to navigate through the time. It was fear of perception, right?
Mm.
How people perceive you during that period. And I'd even heard a reference to it being almost like a weakness. And no, it's actually a
Wow.
strength.
Yeah, yeah,
Strength. It's a strength. It's a strength. And I have to say that again, because the weakness would have been to continue in that space and not taking the time that I needed, um, to find myself again, to feel myself.
right.
I'm one that, I like to go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have learned to take time to rest. And that's why I reference that now, because I don't think that was a thing for me. Like resting wasn't necessarily a thing. I actually struggled with resting. And your body always tells you, we
Listen.
have to listen. Like my body had been telling me for a while, and I wouldn't listen. I would keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a time I literally could not go any further.
Your body
Mentally, I
said,
was exhausted. Physically, I was exhausted. Even spiritually, I was exhausted. I
yeah.
was just exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to take a pause. I had to take a timeout. I'm like, I need time for myself. And even when I took the time out initially, I was still trying to go, 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 because it was almost like I was trying to fight what was considered as that weakness. I was still trying to go, and I just at the time I was like I couldn't, and I'm like,
Yeah,
why do I feel the need to please other people? And I've realized people really don't care that much. We think people care. It's interesting when you talk to people and they make decisions that are based on not necessarily how they feel about the situation, but how they think other people would respond to that situation. And people might care for like a short period of time, but trust me, people care more about themselves than care about about you, right? They might, talk, they might, whatever it is, but it's very short lived. They're going to move on to
yeah,
the next story. They're going to move on to whatever else comes next. So you making a lifelong decision that's putting yourself in a negative place, because of what other people think or would say, it's not worth it. It's
yeah.
really not. And so I'm in a place now that I literally don't care. I care about people, but I don't care enough about what they think about me,
What
if
they
that
think.
makes sense. Especially if it comes to my detriment. If
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You definitely have to take care of yourself. And it's hard to make that shift, right? Because society, we're all about the highlight reel and what does this look like? And, and this is why we have Just Trust the Process podcast, because we are faced with thousands of narratives, right? That just show us what's good all the time, right? I'm on vacation, but what happened here? And I made $1 million, but what did it take for you to get to that $1 million, right? I bought a new, Bugatti or whatever, so like, what are the things that are getting you to this place? And so, here we don't really talk about materialistic things. We're talking more about peace of mind and resting in who you are, and growing and development, right? And growing in Christ, and exercising our faith. And so when you were going through that process of pause, you said that you were exhausted spiritually. how did you navigate the streets of getting back to God and getting back to a place where you felt like me and God are now, I now understand God, or I now am trusting you fully for what's next.
Right. I'm glad you asked that. One thing, like I said earlier, is God never leaves us.
Absolutely.
He never shifts. We're the ones who make the shift. And so first off, I had to come to the realization that I had made a shift. And I had forgotten my first love. And during that period, I was so low that I needed God. Like there was just no way forward without God. Um, and because I was in a place of rest, whether it be, I feel like it was almost forced rest, because yes, I was the one who raised my voice and said I needed the timeout,
Yeah.
but because everything else as I knew it had changed, like I was exhausted. And so I was
Yeah. Yeah.
forced to take a timeout. I was forced to have quiet moments. And it was in those quiet moments that I was able to find my way back to God. And I think it starts off with knowing that I had a foundation with God to start off with, because I'm not sure what it would have
Mhm.
looked like if I didn't have that foundation, but just knowing that I could always come back um, to Him, and just spending time in His presence. Those were the times where I would, sometimes read the Joyce Meyer books. It wasn't necessarily like a time of, oh, just prayer and all of those like spiritual things. It was a time of reflection. It was a time of reading the Word. It was
Mhm.
a time of speaking with God, just in my raw state. It wasn't, you know how sometimes you say prayers and they sound good, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was today socks type
Mhm.
prayers. It was God, why type prayers,
Yeah.
questioning, things that were happening. It was, what do I do next, God, in terms of
Yeah.
direction. And it was also just taking time to listen. And I would say that the listening was not, I ask God why and then He immediately answers. It might be then a few days later that I would get a revelation through something. It would be sometimes through reading something, it would be through conversations, it would be through maybe watching something that I would get an answer. And I share that because I personally have struggled with um, sometimes figuring out if my relationship with God is what it's meant to be. People,
Mhm.
there are some people that I talk to and they're so confident, God said this, God said that. I'm not there. I know God talks to me, but it's not in
Mhm.
that still
Right.
voice. Lola, this is what you need
Yeah.
to do next. No. Mine mine has just always been a journey. It's I ask the questions and I find the answers through living out like my life, if that helps or makes sense. And there are times he instills things in my
No.
heart. I'm not going to say he doesn't, speak to my heart, but for the most part, it's him speaking to me through my experiences um, in life.
I love that. And I love that were really raw and real about the prayers that you were praying. Because sometimes it's not, oh, God, you're beautiful. God, you're amazing. God, I love you. Some days it's like, Lord, I ain't going to be able to do it today. Lord, you better get whoever is about to come to me because I'm about to go off. Lord, I don't feel it. Lord, I can't get out the bed. Lord, this sucks. Like you said, Lord, I don't understand. Lord, I'm tired. Lord, those are prayers. And God really wants us to be 100% honest with Him, 100% real with Him, 100% raw with Him, because He already knows what we're going through. He's just waiting for us to talk to Him about it, right? He
Absolutely.
just sits there. He's like, listen, I know you was going to be here. I already knew this was happening. I just need you to talk to me about it instead of sitting in the corner being all mad and bitter and all the things. Just say something about it, and we'll be able to get on the track that I need you to get back on in order to fix what's going on.
Yep, absolutely. I wanted to
So
touch on
yes,
something you mentioned real quick, and that was the not being able to
absolutely.
not being able to get out of bed part. I struggled a lot with that.
Hmm.
There were days I,
Hmm.
excuse me, physically, physically could not get out of bed, and those were tough days because I had kids. I had kids that
Yeah,
needed
yeah.
their mom. But I was able to tell them. I would tell them that mom needs time, and
Mhm.
I'm grateful. When I tell you that my kids are my greatest gift, I truly mean that. Like God
Oh, you got
took His
that.
time in blessing me with my children.
Yay.
I don't take them for granted at all. They were a source of joy for me even during my dark times. And He blessed
Hmm.
me with children that had hearts of understanding. Imagine if
Good. Yeah.
you're going through those times where you can't get out of bed and you have kids that are like pounding on your door.
Right. Yeah.
My kids wouldn't do that. They would knock on the door. They would check in on me to see if I'm okay. And if I see I'm not okay, they give me the time that I need.
That's a
Those are the
blessing.
things. I know. That's why I'm bringing it up. I was truly blessed in those times.
Yeah.
But the reason why I even wanted to bring up the bed situation was I feel like I spent time beating myself down while I
Mm.
was down, right? And I don't want anyone, listening to this podcast to do that to themselves. It's not worth it.
Hmm.
You're in bed because you've overspent yourself.
Right. Right.
And the
Right.
best thing that you need to do is to accept where you are during that time,
Yes.
accept the rest, take the rest that you need so that you can come back better and stronger, as opposed to beating yourself down because you're already down. It's not a good thing. And one thing I learned during that period also is always putting myself in the third person. How would I respond to my friend if my
That's
friend was going through it?
good.
And I
Yes.
realized that I was a lot nicer
Yeah.
to my
Yeah.
friends, kinder to my friends. And I'm like, why do I feel like I don't deserve that level of love or that level of care? And me being able to put myself in that third person helped me to show myself more kindness. So just
Yeah.
wanted people to be kind to yourself. You deserve it.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. That I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna put that into practice because that's good. That is really, really good to put yourself in the third person and see how you would treat your friend if you were going through the same thing. I think a lot of us do that like in relationships. I think we need to apply that to my single ladies. We definitely need to apply that to these relationships that we be holding on to that we need to let go of. So that's a whole nother podcast for a whole nother different day. But Lola, today, oh my gosh, thank you so much for joining us because that everything that you have revealed today has just been so helpful, especially the part about, not being able to get out of bed. I've been there too. And it's a real thing. And so, letting us know that you're not alone, any listener or any watcher of this,
Mhm.
they're not alone in feeling what you're feeling. Depression is real, anxiety is real, but God is more real, right? And so, Lola, you've given us not just the spiritual, but also the practical of how we can navigate through depression, how we navigate through postpartum depression, how we navigate through tough seasons, and making sure that you're not just spiritually alone, but you have a community. And so, talking about community, if you haven't already joined the God's Jewels community, please join God's Jewels on Facebook. I mean, it's God's and Jewels is JWLS. And then also, I want to let you know, Lola, your vulnerability is going to bless people for years and years to come. And so, continue to tell your story, continue to put yourself out there. This is me prompting you to continue to put yourself out there. Um,
Thank you, babe.
You're welcome. And because your story needs to be told, we need to hear this story of, what led to how, how I saw God through the eyes of my children, right? We need to hear more about that. So, how can people stay in contact with you so that we can get, the first scoop of your new book? How can we stay in contact with you?
Sure. I'm on Instagram. Lola Fadipe is my handle, and that's LolaFadipe. My book, How I Saw God Through My Children, is also available on Amazon for you to purchase, and I highly recommend it. Not just because I wrote it, but it's a fun book. It's not a hard read. It's
It's
full of
not.
it's full of stories, and it's full of nuggets. And I feel like just about anyone can read it and take out something from it. Um, the way I live my life, I always pay attention to the lessons that God's teaching just in my everyday life, and this just focuses on those lessons, being able to see that through my kids, who, again, like I said, are my greatest blessings. And so, yeah, that's you can reach out to me on Instagram, and then obviously support me by purchasing my book.
Yes, and it's a good read. I read the book. I literally finished it in 2 days. I don't have children, but it definitely helped me to see how God sees me. So, love the book. It's so relatable. Make sure y'all go out and purchase it. Thank you again, Lola. This has been an amazing conversation. I want to thank you again, and your wisdom and insight has just definitely inspired us and uplifted us all. And of course, a special shout out to our amazing sponsors, All Things Alisha J, your one-stop shop for everything you need to stay empowered and fabulous. And the book Unmarried Without Children, authored by myself, Alisha J. Make sure you go get a copy. Again, this is an easy read as well. It also talks about these crazy dating streets, but also talks about how you can plan for your family if you are waiting to do so.
Can
Um,
I
and
can I make a
yes,
quick comment, if you don't mind? Just
absolutely.
and I wanted to say that earlier, but I was waiting for the right time. So you keep referencing about folks that are unmarried, and without children. That's not just who your book is for. That's not the
Oh,
only audience. I read your book.
oh,
I
that's
was
true. Yes.
I was blessed by reading your book. And the things that I took out from your book were just your vulnerability. Honestly, it's inspiring. And I feel like there's something that people can take out of it, regardless of if you're already married or have children. So again, it's not only for people that are unmarried, um, and without children. Even if you're married, or if you have kids, I think it's also a good read, for you. So please pick up a book for your mom, pick up a book for your sister, and I think guys also should read the book. So
I
I'm just
agree.
putting that out there, but yes.
Thank you.
It's
Listen, I might have to use that soundbite for my commercial. I appreciate this endorsement, Lola. And as always, you have always been an amazing supporter and endorser. So I love you for it.
too. Love you too.
Thank you. And then remember, ladies, as we walk through this path to purpose, trust the process, stay rooted in faith, and know that God's timing is perfect. Until next time, keep shining and keep trusting the process. It's your girl, Alisha J, and I'll check you out next time. Mwah!